And welcome back to Cafe Cinema. I'm Griff.
I'm Jacob.
And today we're going to be talking about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Doctor Strange and Mom.
And Mom, yeah. Something that I've been on the lookout for a while, because I obviously really liked the first Doctor Strange, and originally this was going to be kind of a Lovecraftian horror movie, but then for semi-obvious reasons Marvel didn't really want anything that scary in their catalog, and so they fired that director, and I think they cycled through a couple of them before they laid it on Sam Raimi. I think that was a pretty late stage announcement.
Yeah, I think it was something where they hearing or seeing something about how they had delayed production in search of a director, or after the first couple of directors not working out, and ended up pushing it farther back as well for to have it make sense in the timeline with Spider-Man No Way Home. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad they chose Sam Raimi.
I think it's kind of an interesting choice, especially since the problem seems to be they choose. A lot of times the system is they scoop up a pretty accomplished but young filmmaker that maybe they've done a couple low budget but successful movies so that they can get them for cheap. But every once in a while they'll pick up someone who has a pretty strong auteur vision and then say, okay, make a movie in this exact specific framework that we have already planned out. And then they get surprised when directors who aren't as work for hire and are more, this is my vision, I want to see it through like this, kind of clash with that. And I'm almost surprised that didn't seem to happen with Sam Raimi, because he brought so much of his visual flair, and we'll talk about that later, but he is a very strong visual filmmaker.
Oh, totally. A lot of his other work, you can tell what's a Sam Raimi addition and what isn't. And I think it's interesting that Disney and Marvel kind of tend to put their eggs in one basket with younger directors, less proven directors, and then expect the more proven, the older, like you said, has more of a vision for their work. Mm-hmm. They almost expect the same thing out of it. I think it interesting move from the producers and the showrunners and the executives over there, but
a respectable move, I think, too. Because in this case, at least visually, I think it panned out really well.
Yeah.
And with so many of these, not even just Marvel, but a lot of these big blockbuster kind of movies, there are whole swaths that the director doesn't even touch, that they hand over to the VFX people, and the director is only handling the dialogue sequences in between.
Yeah, I think you can really see a difference between if you take this Doctor Strange movie and compare it to Black Widow, mm-hmm. for example. You can kind of tell the portions of Black Widow that were just chopped up, and the director said, okay, mm-hmm. We're not doing anything more today because now it's time for VFX.
Yeah.
Whereas with Doctor Strange, it feels a little bit more. It flows a little bit better with mm-hmm. that. The dialogue scenes tend to flow well with the VFX that are happening mm-hmm. around it, and it kind of makes me curious and wonder if if that was something specific that Sam Raimi stipulated when he came on board, I could
that he wanted to do the action scenes as well.
Yeah, or maybe at least sit in on those meetings and sit in and say, this works. This maybe consider retooling this. I don't think it would be I don't think he would have a role of authority in that in those conversations.
I mean, he might. Sam Raimi has a bit of clout.
Well, that's true.
His Spider-Man trilogy did a lot.
Oh yeah.
It didn't do everything that it's credited for. There were obviously superhero movies that came before, but it did quite a bit.
Oh yeah. I think, at least for me, those movies kind of stirred my imagination when it came to what superhero movies could be. Prior to that, at least for me, I hadn't had a whole lot of interactions with superhero movies unless they were on TV, or they were one-offs, like the 84 Batman, 89, sorry. The 89 Batman, definitely, at least in how I envisioned it, a one-off. It wasn't, I didn't see the next connecting thing, at least for a while.
Right.
And so when I finally got around to watching the Spider-Man as they were coming out, I could see, I can see how, I can see the next thing coming. I can see what's coming down the track. The interesting thing I find with those movies compared to this one, all of the villains in Sam Raimi's original Spider-Man trilogy die at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert now, cover your ears if you don't want to hear it.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll say just real quick, I enjoyed the movie. It's not perfect, but if you like the character of Doctor Strange, or even if you don't like the character of Doctor Strange, because he actually gets quite a bit more characterization in this movie than he did in the first one, or even in Infinity War. So I would recommend it.
Totally.
It's going to be on Disney Plus in like a month. So if you haven't seen it at this point, it's fine to wait.
Oh yeah.
It's worth a watch though.
Yeah, and I would say it probably has implications for things coming in the future. There's definitely some wink wink nudge nudge to the potential of Secret War. There's a character introduction that's pretty pivotal for that line at the end of the credits.
The first post-credit scene.
Yes.
Which I guess is the mid-credit. There's a mid-credit scene and a post-credit scene. The scene after the stylized, kind of fun-to-watch credits, and then the scene after the regular black with white text.
Not as
credits.
fun to watch.
Yeah.
I always get those two mixed up. I always think of them as after movie scene 1 and 2. But at the same time, a lot of them are, I mean, we're so used to it now, right? There are jokes now about how the kids are still in the theater, watching the lights go up, and
there are kids going to see there right now who probably don't remember a world before where you left when the credits started.
Yeah, there are probably kids that are going to movies now that don't know what it was like prior to. I guess we don't have to wear masks in there now, but there are probably kids that don't know any different.
Some of the younger ones.
Yeah. And they also don't know what it's like to have a half hour of stuff before the trailers start, and then another half hour of trailers before the movie starts. That's the thing that gets me about all of movie going nowadays is that I love watching trailers.
Yeah,
I love what comes next.
I do too. I actually don't like watching trailers at home.
Yeah,
and so like during COVID, there was a lot of stuff that I just never watched the trailer for. Because I just watched the trailers in the theater.
Right. Yeah. No. I always, when I was growing up, I would always get anxious when my parents were driving us to movies because I wanted to be on time to see the trailers.
Yep.
But my family has an aversion to being on time. Mm-hmm. So that was always a contentious point for me to, I wanted to be there to see the trailers, but obviously none of that really, I can dive on.
Yeah, right. And I mean, nowadays the trailers don't even start until like 3 or 4 minutes after the showtime start.
Right.
And the rest of that, it's Maria Menounos or whichever. Because I think, like, at this point, different theater branches have their own. She's just the default person to me. All respect to Maria Menounos.
Oh, yeah.
That's just who I think of for those
the movie
things. Or now they're bringing in, like, Newbie. Now they're bringing, like, TikTokers and YouTubers and having those do the thing, the pre-movie trivia, or here's this exclusive ad from this thing.
Right.
We are talking about Multiverse of Madness, I promise.
See, these are all things that happen in the multiverse, obviously. So
yeah, there is a universe that everything is a purple background with just one Maria Menounos talking to a captive audience.
Right. Operative word being captive. No, the the theme of the movie obviously is that everything is connected. So
right.
There's no universe where none of what we say is unimportant. Obviously, you're listening to us because we're the most important people in your lives. So, more power to you.
Yeah, no, go watch it. If you aren't as familiar, or like if you've kind of skipped the past couple things, they do a pretty good job of catching you up. It's not like if you were to go see Infinity War without having seen everything that came before. It's best to watch Spider-Man No Way Home and WandaVision.
Yes.
And obviously the first Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
And Infinity War to get some context because they reference what happens in those movies.
Yeah.
And obviously WandaVision is a lot of the crux of Wanda's entire character motivation, which we'll get into. But yeah, watch that or watch a recap. But it's not the end of the world if you don't. They do, I think, a better job than a lot of Marvel movies about catching up. Granted, this is phase 4 where they're not really providing as much context for stuff that happened before Infinity War anymore. That was or before Endgame. It's like, clean the slate. We're really only providing context for the stuff after Endgame. So that makes the research aspect a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I think it makes it a little bit, at least a little bit approachable for new audiences too.
Yeah.
I saw some graphics someone had put up where they said that anybody who wants to get into the MCU now essentially has to wade through almost 60 hours worth of content to just catch up, and by the time they're there, there's probably going to be another 20 hours to watch,
Right, they pump out 3 at least MCU movies a year.
At least, and ones that have some sort of impact, major impact on the world.
Right, because now I think the only movies that aren't team-up movies of at least 2 of the characters are the origin stories.
Right.
So, Shang-Chi didn't have anything more than cameos from, Wong and Hulk. Eternals didn't really have anything. Black Widow was, both. It was a team-up and an origin story. Because I think that Black Widow was trying to simultaneously bid farewell to Scarlett Johansson and be an origin story for Florence Pugh's character.
Yeah, which is kind of unfortunate considering that Black Widow never got an origin story in the one movie where she should be getting one. It's really someone else's.
It was, her one solo movie was more about another character than it was for her. It was like a passing of the torch movie.
Just add it to the list of things Scarlett Johansson can use to sue Disney.
I don't know that she can sue them for creative direction, but I definitely think they should have handled her character better.
Oh, totally.
But, I mean, what can you do at this point?
Yeah, she's at the bottom of a
cliff.
Yeah.
Hawkeye should have died.
Oh, hands down. This is
my hot take.
That controversy is almost akin to who shot first in A New Hope.
Han versus Greedo, who should have died on Vormir.
Yeah, who should have died on Vormir.
I've seen lots of very compelling arguments that Hawkeye should have died in Age of Ultron. And I tend to agree, both because I'm not super fond of the character and I'm not super fond of Jeremy Renner.
Just all around not a fan of anything.
Even aside from the allegations against him, the whole drama with him starting his own app and scalping money from people through that, it's just not a good look.
And now with I really don't understand the whole Hawkeye show either. Again, it's a show that focuses on a character.
It's a show that's named after a character that's been around, but serves as an origin story / passing the torch.
Yes,
and I guess the good thing is, I personally at least really like both of those characters. I really like Haley Steinfeld as Kate, and I really like Florence Pugh as Yelena.
Yeah,
and especially with Hawkeye, getting to see those two together.
Oh yeah.
The best parts of the Hawkeye show were the parts that Hawkeye was not in. With the Steve Rogers musical and Kate and Yelena.
That elevator scene is probably my favorite of the entire series. I like it. That's probably my favorite scene out of any Marvel show besides WandaVision.
It's a good scene. I don't know if I could pick a favorite of all of them.
That's why that scene is my favorite, because the rest I just don't like. I haven't committed to memory.
Really, just their entire kind of battle in the finale of Hawkeye, because it goes from the elevator fight and the moment where she takes off her hoodie and she's got the costume, was that on purpose? To when she's like, oh, how about we go out for drinks instead? And Yelena genuinely wants to go out for drinks with her, and he's yeah, no, I think that would be a good idea. I'm gonna kill Hawkeye first, but let's go. And then just when they get up to the window and she's like, oh no, you did a really cool move with the pan doing this stuff. Great chemistry between those two actors. I can't wait to see more of them in the future.
Yeah, that chemistry was probably the saving grace of that show.
Haley Steinfeld had good chemistry with Jeremy Renner as well,
sure.
but not on that level.
No, and that was really the show too. That was something we see Kingpin for all of 2 minutes and then he dies.
Well, he
quote
unquote dies.
Yeah, that's the.
But we'll see. I'm actually kind of excited for Young Avengers, if it's going to be circling back to the movie we're talking about.
Right.
America Chavez, who debuts in this movie and I believe is on the Young Avengers team.
Yeah.
And then Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop, and then maybe Florence Pugh as Yelena.
I think
'Cause I don't know if she's like on that team in the comics.
I don't think she is, but I think they could retcon her in there.
Yeah, they could put it in, capitalize on that chemistry.
Yeah,
because it's too good to pass up.
Right.
And she is. I don't know what she is in the comics, but in the MCU, she is essentially like the next generation of Black Widow.
Right.
And so it would make sense within that context. Aside from, I think she's meant to be quite a bit older.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's in Black Widow, it seems like she's only a couple years younger than Nat.
Yeah,
which would probably put her like not adjusting for the blip and the time jump stuff. That would put her probably
mid to late 20s maybe.
Well, I'm thinking like in relation to like Kate Bishop.
Oh,
probably
sure.
5 to 10 years her senior.
Yeah, I would say so.
But, I mean, I don't know. It could be like a fun babysitter thing. Where, like, she's almost the older sister dealing with all these stupid kids.
I would pay to see
I would be interested in that.
Oh, yeah.
That's something that I actually have been impressed with a lot of this Phase 4 stuff, is it's stuff that genuinely makes me want to see future stuff.
Yeah. It's less pointing in one direction and one direction only, that it feels like it's less of a slog to get through, the obvious end game with the first phases was getting towards
Thanos.
The Infinity Stones and Thanos.
This one, it seems to be building towards a full multiversal war, like what was talked about in Loki.
Right.
With Kang the Conqueror figuring in as the Thanos.
Which would be the Secret Wars comic line.
Is that what Secret Wars is? I'm not really a comic reader.
I believe. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that can correct me if I'm wrong, but
right.
And please do. But Secret Wars is what I believe is the multiversal war.
Okay.
That. It's either that or it's the one where the Kree show up.
That I think is Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion is a show.
Right, and that's coming soon. I think Secret Wars is that multiversal war where Supreme Strange roams around and essentially tries to eliminate all threats ever. And then the bad guys from the King Conqueror and the bad guys from, or the good guy, bad guy from Eternals are the ones that are trying to either unite all the multiverses under one ruler or something like that. I can't really remember.
By good guy, bad guy, do you mean the Celestials?
Yeah, the Celestials. Okay. Those are the...
Because those are the other big threat.
Right.
That kind of just came out of nowhere for that one movie, and then they haven't really been mentioned again.
Right.
I'm sure they will, but
I think that's something that they're building too as well, because they're supposed to be a pretty big.
Yeah, well, because they're literally the gods,
right?
Of the Marvel universe. I could see that focusing more in. Like, maybe they'll have a bit part in Thor: Love and Thunder and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, because that's what is dealing with more of the cosmic stuff.
Right. They do have a. I think if I remember right, they are the ones who actually end up sending Silver Surfer to Earth in the Fantastic Four comics. So. And obviously Silver Surfer is big.
Yeah, is Galactus a Celestial, or is he something else?
No, he's something else.
Okay.
That would be me being incorrect, and Galactus is the one who sends. So he's the Silver Surfer works for Galactus.
Yeah.
And Galactus is the one that's trying to eat all worlds.
Right.
Which is probably what Secret War is about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like a big comic reader, so.
I only pretend to be.
So only pretend to be for internet clout.
Right. So disregard everything I say and take it with a grain of salt, but also believe me and follow me.
Yeah, so I guess we should get into the movie.
No,
it starts.
We're 25 minutes into this. Let's continue to talk about other things besides
about absolute nonsense.
Right.
Well, it makes it seem like there's not much in the movie to talk about, and there's actually quite a bit of the movie to talk about.
Right.
So we start off immediately with the imagery that I love from Doctor Strange, which is just the kaleidoscopic, reality-bending nightmare world. So we're introduced to America Chavez. We don't know that that's who she is yet, and this unfamiliar version of Doctor Strange, who I think is called Defender Strange.
Yeah.
Because they all have designations. He's the one with the ponytail.
Ponytail Strange.
Yeah. Who they're getting chased by this mummy-looking thing. I really like the monster design. It's the thing from the trailer that has all the wrappings that grab onto people. It's got the weird face. And so Doctor Strange decides, okay, this is the only way, harkening back to Infinity War, when he says, okay, the only way to win is my way, where we give Thanos the time stone and then Endgame happens. So he says the only way to keep this demon, this thing, from getting America's power, which we don't know what it is yet as the viewer, is for me to take it from you, killing you, because I can control it and you can't.
Right.
And then before he can go through with that, he gets impaled by the mummy monster. And then America opens up a portal. I like the way the portals are done. They're in the star shape, and you can see like the layers of reality going back. Looks like one of those forever mirrors. So she gets sucked through a portal. Doctor Strange wakes up.
Non-ponytail Doctor Strange.
Right. Our Doctor Strange. I forget what the universe designations are.
Ours is 616.
616? Okay. So our 616 Doctor Strange. He wakes up. He's getting ready for some... I mean, if you've seen the trailer, you know. But he's getting ready for Christine's wedding, who was his love interest in the first Doctor Strange, that they had dated and broken up. And then when he went through his crisis and became Doctor Strange, he essentially... It's been a while since I watched the first Doctor Strange, but they did like the weird nose kiss.
Right.
And it was, I'm still interested in you, but I have to go and be Doctor Strange.
Right.
And that's kind of where they left things. Now she has obviously moved on and is getting married. And there's the great little jab from his rival doctor from the first one. Because it ties again back into the idea of, was this the only way to do things? And he says yes, that was the only way that it could have been done. And then he says, you still didn't get the girl. And then that's when Christine's walking down the aisle, and it's, I don't know, I don't think that they had great chemistry, those two actors. I love Rachel McAdams, but I do kind of wish that they had got someone with better on-screen chemistry with Benedict Cumberbatch. Just to kind of feel that relationship and feel that loss for him, especially with that, him still being in love with Christine being so central to his character in this movie. And so I think that kind of cheapens it just a little bit. Not enough to destroy my enjoyment, but that might just
enough to like
see what it could have been.
Yeah, maybe put you out of the experience for a couple seconds, and then that's the big thing for me, was like, if actors make relationships believable, then it's less likely for me to feel like I'm taken out of the story experience. And with their chemistry definitely took me out of the story experience for at least a little bit. If I was assigned a color to it, it would feel gray. That's how I feel about their relationship.
And
it feels gray.
It didn't help that was coming out like right after No Way Home, where obviously Tom Holland and Zendaya are dating in real life. I think still dating. At least they were. But so their romantic chemistry was great.
Oh yeah.
And it's not exclusive to actors who are actually dating each other for real, but the chemistry there was great. And so at the end of that movie, when Mary Jane she's not Mary Jane, MJ forgets him, you feel that loss. And when they're saying goodbye, I didn't have the same feeling during the Steven and Christine scenes in this.
Right.
But I think it's a fairly universal experience, having to, like, there's the person that you're interested in, they're not interested in you. Maybe, like, there was something there, but they've moved on. You're not quite there yet, but you're still friends, and so you're watching them be happy with someone else. And so that still hit for me. And partly because of Benedict Cumberbatch's acting.
Oh, yeah.
Not even when they're in the same scene together, but just, like, back to that little beat of you still didn't get the girl, doors open, out of frame, we hear Here Comes the Bride waltz, and just the way his face kind of sinks.
Oh, yeah.
Or when, after the ceremony, when he meets her at the bar, and he does his turning water into wine trick, and then he's talking to her and he's saying, I wish that I had been more. I wish that I had been what you needed me to be. And that's the first instance of people asking Doctor Strange if he's happy or not.
Oh, yeah.
And him, of course, lying about it. I don't understand the people who say that Doctor Strange didn't have any characterization, because there's here, like, already at least two, like, character through lines, because she also says, as part of her reasoning for why it wouldn't have worked out between them, is that he always had to be the one holding the knife. It always had to be him in charge, doing it his way. He knows best. Back to Guardian Strange taking America Chavez's powers, back to our Doctor Strange giving Thanos the Time Stone. It had to be his thing done his way.
Right. He kind of acts as like a de facto leader of everyone ever, but with none of the authority. And I think that's the interesting part of, because, like, I mean, with the first Doctor Strange movie and even with this one, you kind of see how the the other magicians, are they called magicians? I don't know. Sorcerers. Duh, Sorcerer's Supreme.
Yeah.
The other sorcerers give him that, like, the respect that he deserves, right? And of course, being the Sorcerer Supreme up until, what is it? Endgame when Wong gets it? Or?
Yeah, well, because he is snaps at the end of Infinity War.
Right, so
and then
during the blip.
Yeah. And then I don't think it's, like, officially acknowledged until No Way Home.
Yeah.
Where he says, Doctor Strange, you're not the Sorcerer Supreme. He's like, no, Wong got that on a technicality because I didn't exist for 5 years.
Right, that's right. Good joke.
It is a good joke. I like Doctor Strange's sense of humor.
No, but you kind of see, like, his... they give him that respect. He doesn't get it outside of his own movies.
Right.
And that's the interesting part. Like, even, like, actually, besides No Way Home, you kind of don't understand why he's acting so entitled. You know, like, yes, his powers give him a reason to be respected, but at the same time, if you went by that logic, we shouldn't respect Captain America for anything, because he technically doesn't have powers. He was changed by chemicals,
right?
Or we shouldn't respect Tony because he made his powers,
right?
So I don't know. I think there's I think there's a little bit of, and I think this movie tackles this in a really good way.
Yeah, this movie definitely humbles Doctor Strange quite a bit. And I appreciate that. I don't know that we ever got that kind of humility from Tony.
No, certainly not.
Aside from, like, his guilt in Civil War.
Right.
Or his PTSD in Iron Man 3. But we never got, like, the full, I am letting someone else take the wheel, which is Doctor Strange's whole arc in this movie.
Right, which is, it's great. I think they realized that they don't need another Tony.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of what was leading up to this movie, it felt like Doctor Strange was Sorcerer Tony.
Yeah.
Or maybe more.
Yeah, they even look similar. They had their back and forth. Their entire section of Infinity War was just bickering back and forth.
Right. It's
but yeah, I like that he's taking a different path.
Yeah.
So we get the first kind of kernels of that character growth. Christine mentions that her now husband is a huge fan, which I think is kind of funny, because then America shows up on the street chased by the eyeball octopus thing from all of the trailers. So Doctor Strange, like, casually, like he's James Bond, just finishes his drink, sets it on a tray, flips on his cloak of levitation and jumps over the railing.
Just like cool,
and just does magic to get in his outfit. I don't like the nanobot outfit changes, but I really like the magic outfit changes.
Oh yeah.
So like this and in Moon Knight, when it's the suit goes on because of magic, versus when it's like they tap a thing and then the nanobots just unfold, like the Iron Spider suit or later Iron Man suits. And then it's funny, Christine is like mortified, but her husband is filming it on his phone. He's like, oh, this is so cool.
It's a very great fangirl moment for him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So then Wong shows up, which, can we talk about how Wong is like the new Nick Fury almost?
Wong,
where he's just showing up in everything, and it's awesome because he's just so great, and Benedict Wong does such a good job playing him.
He's the best character in the MCU.
Pretty much.
He could do no wrong in my eyes. Like, if he one day woke up and decided that he was gonna rule all of Earth 616, I would say sure.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
I think that would be a good change.
I think the kind of change that Wong brings is what we need in office. I think I'm gonna start the campaign for Wong 2024. Yeah.
No, but especially I like the combat. Mm-hmm. How they're actually using like magical tools and spells and everything. Doctor Strange uses like the magic buzzsaw to saw a car in half. Wong has his like magical corded Dao sword. So they fight the octopus. Doctor Strange realizes that he recognizes America from his dream, and there's the great comedy bit where he's just like, okay, we're gonna take you back to the sanctum, and then turns around and she's already gone. So then they catch up to her, and this is like where we get some of the exposition. We know that America has the ability to travel between the multiverses, or between the universes in the multiverse, and that something is after her. Mm-hmm. And that there is this book, I forget what it's called.
The Darkhold.
No, that's the evil book. There's the good book that can defeat the whatever is after her.
Yeah.
I'll just call it the Book of MacGuffin.
Book of MacGuffin.
And so they know, okay, something's after America. This is her power. We need to get the Book of MacGuffin to save her.
Right.
And so they take her to I forget what that's called too, but the school from Doctor Strange, the first Camertage. So they take America to Camertage. Stephen goes to the farm that Vision left Wanda and finds her like pruning her apple tree. She assumes that he's there to talk about what happened in WandaVision. He instead says, no, we found this girl. We need you to help protect her. Wanda slips up and says her name before Steven ever told her. And this is another kind of through line that comes back with Wanda, where she says making the hex was the easy part. The lying was the hard part.
Right.
That comes back later, and then she wipes it away, and the whole farm is like this weird, unnatural red wasteland. The little farmhouse is smashed. She's got the Darkhold just right in front of her.
Just hanging out.
Yeah. And then she kind of explains her plan to Steven, that she needs to take America's powers to go to a dimension where her kids exist. And I think the implication is maybe because they also say that dreams are windows into your multiversal lives.
Right.
And so presumably, like, she dreamed about the kids, and then that was in her subconscious. And then when she made the hex in WandaVision, they manifested as her kids that then stopped existing.
Right.
In our reality, but do exist elsewhere.
There's actually a end credit or post credit scene somewhere along the line. I don't remember in what show or movie. It might be at the very end of WandaVision, but there's a content creator out there that does a lot of explainers, basically, and he made I feel bad because I don't remember his username, but he basically explained the whole reason why she knows that they're out there was because at the end through this end credit scene, she's meditating with the Darkhold.
I think that's the post-credit scene at the very end of WandaVision.
Yeah, you can hear them call out to her.
And so it's through the Darkhold that she's able to look into the multiverse, and she knows that they're there. And so that's it. That's her singular motivation. It's just she wants her children.
She wants to be mom.
Yeah, she has moved on from her grief of losing Vision, and now is grieving because she doesn't have her kids. And that is, I like that as a villain motivation.
Yeah.
It's better than Guy Who Wants Revenge or Tony's Plan Gone Awry number 237.
It's better. It's also better than I'm a Douchebag Planet. But we're not going to talk about that movie.
We're not going to talk about that. So then that sets up just, Wanda is the thing that's been after America. Pretty early reveal.
Yeah, I was really surprised about that, but I'm not particularly mad. Surprised, but not
because
mad.
I like that the rest of it is just kind of like a back and forth, almost duel between Doctor Strange and Wanda. And we can also touch on how the remaining Avengers are kind of culpable because nobody bothered to check on Wanda.
Oh, no.
She was she's the most powerful being in the universe, pretty much, on the planet, who has just been through devastating tragedy after devastating tragedy. And they were just she'll land on her feet.
Cool, see you at the next meeting.
Yeah. What?
Yeah, no, that's one thing that I've never understood, and to be honest, without that like ignoring phase, I don't know if we would get the Wanda that we have, you know.
No, I think that Wanda probably would have gone down a very different path if the Avengers cared.
Yeah, if they came around her. But, you know, obviously it's the Avengers. If you didn't belong to the original cast, your life doesn't matter.
I mean,
we see that, like, we see, like, a lot of the, like, the people that got blipped that were a part of the original cast were only out of the story because they got blipped.
Right.
You know, the others that came on that were pivotal members in the comics were almost treated like, I don't want to say afterthoughts, but
right. Well, and part of that is just because of the story progression.
Right.
Because Endgame was the send off to that original lineup,
right?
Even though half of them are still active in the story,
right? And
it was the send off of Captain America and Iron Man,
right? Yeah, it was the tip of the hat. You know, the letting
and
other
so
people come in.
It was tying and also the send off. Kind of the send off to Black Widow, because then again her solo movie happened right after that,
right? And
then now we have variants, so everyone's alive.
Right, everyone's alive.
Death means nothing.
Right, the multiverse is massive, and everyone has multiple copies of themselves.
Right, but it's fine. Don't think about it.
It's just more money for the mouse. It's fine.
Yeah, so that sets up our core conflict. And so now, because Steven said we took her here, now she knows where they are. And so they have this almost like the Battle of Hogwarts setup where they're all like in the courtyard sending up their magic shields, waiting for Wanda to show up. There's a Minotaur there for some reason.
Best part.
Where did the Minotaur come from?
Minotaur for VP. Wong for president.
Minotaur for VP. Like I didn't know that there were Minotaurs just in this world. He showed up in the trailer, and I was like, "Oh, there's going to be like a mythology universe." No, he's just here.
No, he's just
never explained. He's just random guy there.
You know, it's probably that they just didn't want to reveal the Minotaur show on Disney Plus, but. That's just my...
Yeah, he's getting his own spin-off to explain
who
he is and why he's there.
Right. And it's gonna be an 8 episode. It's not 10. It's gonna be 8 because he really doesn't matter too much. But they needed to throw some money towards Ryan Johnson because they have to justify his existence in the Disney prison anyways. So.
So we actually get this pretty cool battle sequence.
Oh, yeah.
Doctor Strange goes up to try to negotiate her. People keep telling Wanda that her kids don't exist. I don't 100% get that because, at least from Strange, because he knows the multiverse.
Right.
And so if she says, okay, well, I know that they're in a universe somewhere, and he's still like, no, you don't have any kids. They're not real. They were a figment of your imagination. Also, and they were tangibly real.
You could touch
within
them.
The hex. She did physically give birth to them.
Yep.
So that doesn't 100% track, but it's fine. We get into the battle,
which really cool way to start the battle.
Really cool, yeah. Where she says, like, oh, this is me being reasonable.
Right.
I am showing up and I am asking you to get out of my way. Which we find out later that, yeah, that was her being reasonable relative to the lengths she was willing to go to. But then the moment where she shoots out her magic and then it's just blocked by the shield, and he just floats down to Wanda and he says, nailed it.
That's one of my favorite lines too. Is their relationship is just great.
Their relationship, the chemistry between those.
Oh yeah,
between Benedict Wong and Benedict Cumberbatch. I just realized they're both named Benedict. Yeah, that's great. She is able to topple their whole defense by just getting into the mind of this one person.
And just
I like
literally
that.
whispering,
run, and he freaks out, knocks everybody over, opening up a hole in the defense for her to just go through and wreck shop.
Oh yeah.
Steven traps her in the mirror dimension. There's a great reference to the Evil Dead 2 where she puts her hand on the mirror and then goes through like water. This is probably the most Sam Raimi sequence in the whole movie, where she's grabbing people through the reflections of like the puddles and pulling them into nowhere, and the camera's whipping around, and then she crawls out of a gong like some sort of Evil Dead hag, and her joints are like pointed the wrong way, and then she reassembles herself. And that was the first thing where I was like, oh, this is going to be kind of darker than...
Honestly, I kind of hoped they were going to keep that style or like that up throughout the entire film.
Yeah,
and not just
it kind of comes and goes.
Yeah,
there's that was kind of frightening, a little bit brutal, and then there's the scene that everyone knows with the Illuminati. So she goes through, knocks out Wong. America opens a portal. She and Strange go through it. And then Wanda is paired up with Wong for the rest of the time. And I also liked the scenes of them together.
Mm-hmm. I think Wong really makes a lot of the scenes that he's in. He tends to bring a lot to that, you know, and not to take anything away from Elizabeth Olsen. I think she had good.
I think she was a tremendous performance, especially for playing it as like she's just on the edge of a meltdown the entire movie.
Yeah, and I think that this movie kind of she finally stepped into the role that was completely her. Mm-hmm. You know, she wasn't defined by her relationship like she is for a majority of the MCU.
Yeah.
You know, and she
has her agency. Even in WandaVision, like a lot of the crux of WandaVision is she is so out of control of her own powers that she did all of this on accident.
Right.
Here she is motivated. This is what I want. I am going to get it.
Yep.
And I also really like, it comes later in the story, but when she's paired off with Wong and they go to the tomb on the mountain, and she realizes, this Scarlet Witch that I've become is destined to rule over the entire universe. And she's like, I am destined to rule everything, but all I want is my kids. Mm-hmm. That is the only thing that's important to me.
Yeah.
And Wong is the first person to say, isn't it enough to know that even though you can't be with them here, that there is a world out there where you're together and where they're happy?
Yeah.
And she's unable to accept that. So there's a lot of great stuff that comes, a lot of really good stuff that comes from her and Wong. I am a little bit disappointed that after this awesome, like, continuous shot of them Strange and America going through all the different multiverse or universes, that we're pretty much just in this one universe for most of the rest of the movie. Mm-hmm. We're like in that, and then in the destroyed universe, and then back into our universe again. Right. I could have used a couple more additional universes.
I would have loved to go back to the paint one.
The paint universe.
The paint universe, like
the one where they're all like splitting into blocks.
Oh my gosh, that looked. I mean, someone from the Illuminati kind of gets split.
Kind of, yeah.
Actually, two people kind of get split.
I mean, yeah.
We'll talk about that
in a couple
later.
ways. But they're in this new universe, which is the Illuminati universe. It's kind of interesting looking. It looks like it's a fairly advanced, like the buildings and everything look advanced. It looks like they have allowed nature to kind of creep up the sides of the buildings, essentially turning them into gardens.
Feels like a universe where the Green New Deal actually went through. Feels very environmentally conscious.
Yeah, does look very environmental. It almost reminds me of that Family Guy bit where he's like, "Oh, this is the universe where Christianity never existed. The neglect on science never happened." It's just a couple steps away from that universe. That's just like what the buildings and everything reminded me of. So they decide that they need to go and find that universe's Doctor Strange because there is no other America Chavez.
Right.
She says she doesn't know how to use her powers. She can't go and learn from another version of herself because there's no other version of herself that exists. And so they go to find their other Strange. Along the way is where they find the memory lane thing where we get a nice little flashback of Strange and Christine where she gives him the watch that is like his thing. He's wearing it all through the first movie. He's wearing it all through this movie. The cracked watch with whatever engraving on the back. I forget what it said, but it was a gift from her. Again, I kind of wish that the actors had better chemistry, but it's fine. America steps on the panel and we see the kind of her origin story where she was with her moms. I refuse to give Disney too much credit for that because this is what they do. They have like a little bit of representation but it's like 30 seconds worth and then they just edit it out of any cut of the movie for anywhere that isn't as accepting of gay rights.
Right.
So she gets scared by a bee and accidentally sends her moms into the multiverse.
Right.
And she thinks that they're dead. Speaking on America Chavez and representation, I kind of wonder what the deal is because she's got a pride flag pin on her jacket the whole movie. And I kind of wonder if Disney has like a whole department dedicated to digitally removing that pin for certain cuts of the movie, or if they're just kind of counting on like if it's a market that isn't gonna be wild about a movie with representation in it, if maybe they won't recognize it because they don't have as much exposure to that community.
Well, they do have a department. It's a testing department to make sure that whatever they're putting out there is kosher, and that department is called the state of Florida. Although it didn't really work out last time because they realized that the "Don't Say Gay" bill wasn't actually a good idea.
Yeah. But I mean, it could be that the costume designer or Sam Raimi was like, you know what, to hell with it.
Yeah.
Put the pin on. Let them edit that out. I kind of would love to think that it was like a subtle middle finger to that whole practice. Like, yeah, cut this out.
Yeah, I hope so. Because
that's what they do. They give them, for all the pats on the back, they give themselves for having representation, and then it's like a background character for 2 seconds in one cut of the movie.
Right. And the unfortunate bit of all of that is that, like, they have a choice between selling their movie to distributors that live in countries where the state religion refuses to
where
accept.
Either the government or the people just won't accept that, and they choose to make the most money and have the biggest market possible over having actual representation for people.
Right, which is a shame, really.
Yeah, it's frustrating,
and it's just it doesn't quite add up to what Disney has tried to perpetuate in America. So you kind of have to see both sides of the same coin.
Yeah. So I just don't give them credit where credit is not due.
Right.
So we get that backstory. There's a little touching moment between her and Strange where he says, if your moms were anything like their daughter, they're still alive somewhere. and you're going to get to see them again one day. So that already kind of is endearing her to our Strange more than the Defender Ponytail Strange.
Right.
And then they go to the Sanctum, find the statue of that Strange, says that he died fighting Thanos. And then they meet Mordo.
They bring back Mordo.
Yeah, played once again by Chiwetel Ejiofor. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but he looks good in this.
Oh,
in
yeah.
this version where he's got like the full beard and the dreads, and it's obviously not our Mordo. It's
right.
This universe's Mordo. And Strange explains kind of like, oh yeah, he was the first person to teach me how to be a sorcerer, and then he decided to dedicate his life to killing me. Turns out they're cool in this dimension, and they invite him in for tea, but the tea is laced with the sands of something, which I guess is a magic item that inhibits magic.
Yeah. And basically roofies you.
Yeah, I think the roofies were a separate thing.
Oh, okay.
It was probably laced with both the drugs and the... Yeah. And so Steven wakes up in prison in like these glass cages, because it always works to put people in glass cages.
Right, because they need to be able to see out, because that's the purpose of having them in cages.
I mean, it's an observation
right.
thing, so it is different, but it's still funny. Turns out the head researcher of this place is this universe's Christine, in what I think is her comics costume. I heard someone say that that's how she's dressed in the comics, as her night nurse persona. Because I guess she in the comics is like Rosario Dawson in the Daredevil series, where she's a nurse who fixes up superheroes.
Pretty much, yeah.
So that's cool. We find out that Doctor Stranges are kind of a danger, because being in another reality causes a risk of an incursion, which is when multiple realities collide and one or both of them is destroyed. So then we eventually get to actually meet the Illuminati. Steven is like desperately trying to say, no, Wanda's going to be coming. And they're like, nah, we're not worried about the Scarlet Witch. We're worried about you. Cut back to this awesome like crossfade sequence of Wanda starting to dream walk. And another very Sam Raimi kind of horror sequence where, where that universe's Wanda is like putting her kids to bed. We get the infamous ice cream song that I thought was fine. It's worth noting that one of her kids is played by, look at his name, Julian Hilliard, who played young Luke in Haunting of Hill House.
Nice.
He was one of the best kid actors in that miniseries.
Love that.
I didn't recognize him until I was looking through IMDb, just because he looks older now and is without his glasses.
Oh, right.
But so she puts the kids to bed, more of the camera just like moving around, more monster vision. She goes to the sink, and our like Scarlet Witch Wanda with the full glowing eyes is in the reflection, and then she is able to take control of that Wanda, and that's where we get the ice cream song, because she listens to it. We flash back to Wong and someone, I think she was a teacher.
Yeah, it's
or something.
Something like that.
While Wanda is distracted doing her dream walking, they're like, okay, we need to destroy the Darkhold. And so she stabs it with a knife, and then the book is destroyed, but she also is destroyed. And that's where Wanda makes Wong take her to the ancient mountain tomb.
Right.
Because he says the Darkhold was transcribed from the walls of this tomb on a mountain. So then we go back to the the Illuminati. This is where we meet them. We've got
the big reveal.
Yeah, well, several big reveals.
Right.
I'm trying to remember the guy's name.
Anson Mount.
Yeah, Anson Mount. Black Bolt, the guy with the tuning fork on his head. One of my favorite Doctor Strange lines was like, "Oh, you're lucky that he doesn't engage in conversation with you because Black Bolt is signing at him." And he's like, "What? Does he have bad breath?" But I think Black Bolt is the only new character. Addition.
Slightly new.
Yeah, new. Like was he in something else?
He's from Inhumans.
Oh.
I'm not sure if they recast. I haven't watched the first.
Neither have I.
Episodes.
I don't think I heard a single good thing about that show. Unfortunately,
there wasn't. But that's where he's from. He's the king of the Inhumans.
Okay,
technically.
So Black Bolt. We get Captain Carter, played by Haley Atwell. Everyone was saying, "Oh, Captain Carter needs her own movie pronto after that one What If episode."
Right.
I mean, I'm fine with her little live action appearance. I hope that we actually let Sam be Captain America now. That's something that I'm not the only one who was frustrated by. We went through all of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier to put Sam in the Captain America persona. And then after that first episode of What If, the Captain America Twitter changed their profile to Captain Carter. Everything changed to Captain Carter.
Right, which, just completely defeats the purpose of it.
It's frustrating. I'm hoping that we got our Captain Carter fix.
Yeah.
We can go back to Sam.
We can go back to Sam.
We can go back to Sam. We also have Lashana Lynch, who I had forgotten was in Captain Marvel. When I saw her, recognized her from No Time to Die. Mm-hmm. But she was not Monica Rambeau, but the Elder Rambeau. Mm-hmm. And she is this universe's Captain Marvel. And then the big reveal that wasn't spoiled in any trailers or anything, that people went absolutely nuts.
Oh, right.
John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic.
I am so excited about this for two reasons. One, I think John Krasinski is a brilliant actor.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
I think that he's going to bring something that we haven't seen to the Reed Richards role. Mm-hmm. And two, this is quite possibly one of the only motivators that I can get my fiance to actually watch these movies with me. So, shout out to the directors for finally bringing
the casting director. Oh no, you have to watch it. It's got Jim from The Office.
It's got Jim from The Office and his real don't smite me for this. His real life wife that'll come when they actually do.
I think I told you in the theater after we saw it. Part of me would love it if he's only playing Reed Richards in this universe.
Right.
And that when the Fantastic Four gets brought into the mainline MCU, that he's played by a different actor, just to mess with the people who have been so insufferable.
Oh, yeah.
Because, it's a good casting. I am totally fine with fan casting, but the level that this was on where, even it wasn't even just, people on the internet. It was, the press, they were on press junkets for Quiet Place Part 2, and there were reporters that were just not paying any mind to the actual movie they were promoting. They're like, yeah, you worked for years to bring this movie to life that has been a passion project for you, but are you guys going to do the Fantastic Four? And you can tell in those interviews that they're just getting so exasperated.
Oh, totally.
So part of me would love just to mess with those people.
Oh, yeah. I would love to see them get their comeuppance, but the selfish part of me doesn't want to see that. So.
Yeah.
And
obviously I love John Krasinski. I love Emily Blunt. I love seeing them together. Because, in A Quiet Place is not a perfect movie, but it was fun to see them together and playing a couple.
Totally, yeah.
And then a late arrival is Patrick Stewart, back reprising his role as Professor X in the yellow chair, while playing the theme song from the animated X-Men movie. I thought the theme song was maybe a little bit much.
Yeah, no, it was, I think so too, but at the same time, it warmed my 12-year-old heart.
I didn't grow up on that show, so I didn't have any particular attachment to it, but it was good. It was good to see Patrick Stewart again.
Oh, goodness, yeah. And that's one of the things that I'm, he I feel like he's almost kind of doing his last kind of hurrahs around his prized roles. We've got season 2 of Picard that I haven't even touched with the 10-foot pole, because why would you touch robot Jean-Luc? Robert Jean-Luc. But now, he's finally coming back in as Professor X.
Yeah.
I mean, he really made that role in the original X-Men movies.
The first 2 X-Men movies get so much more credit than they deserve.
Oh, yeah.
I think that they did in some ways, that first X-Men movie walked so that the first Spider-Man movie could run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree, and those are movies that I go back to maybe once a year, and I'll watch all 3 of them, just because those were ones that when I first started watching superhero movies, right. It was the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans
and those X-Men movies. Even the third one has stuff in it that I like. I don't think it's a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I guess what I like is that after Charles dies, that Magneto is actually mourning him, and there's whatever his name is, Flame Boy, who's like, oh, I wish I would have killed Professor X myself, and Magneto just shuts him down. He's like, no, Professor X did more for us than you will ever know.
Yeah, Flame Boy is is an accurate representation of.
I mean, that's pretty much what he is. He's the Human Torch, but as an X-Man, I'm sure that he's a long celebrated character. I think he worked really well as a foil to Iceman.
Yeah.
Literally. But so Professor X shows up. This is how we learn why they're so distrustful of Doctor Strange, because their Doctor Strange got the Darkhold and started dreamwalking and caused an incursion that collapsed another universe.
Right.
Because, circling back again, he thought that was the only way. He had to be the one holding the knife. This is the only way to defeat Thanos. And then they beat Thanos together, and then they executed their Strange. And created, apparently, a whole facility towards making sure that any other Doctor Strange that comes through is detained. Because they say the biggest threat to the multiverse is Doctor Strange. And then that, of course, is when Wanda is able to once again dreamwalk and possess that universe's Wanda, and she gets to the facility. And then we get that scene where the rest of the Illuminati leaves. It's just Strange and Mordo and Professor X. This is the thing that everyone dunks on, where Reed Richards says, it's over, Wanda. This guy, with the single word from his mouth, he can destroy you. And then she says, what mouth? And pans down, his mouth is just gone.
Right.
And then, I have no mouth, I must scream. He screams, right. And you see it blow out the back of his head.
Oh, yeah.
And that was when I was like, oh, this is kind of...
It's getting real.
Yeah, this is kind of dark. She turns Reed Richards into silly putty.
Oh, yeah.
And then his head explodes.
Which is that was one that I that was one of the spoilers that got ruined for me.
Oh,
when
really? Okay.
2 days before went and saw it, I was dumb and I got on the internet.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even looking for it. It just came across, and I saw something about how Wanda just demolishes everyone, and I was like, really?
That was one of the things. I wasn't intentionally avoiding spoilers for this one particularly, but I knew that she just kills everyone in the Illuminati and does it in like fun, ironic ways.
Yeah, and like I kind of like the memes now that are out about how she kills Reed Richards, and was like his power ends up being his biggest weakness, and he shows it right away, and but yeah,
that was for the smartest man in the world. That was
pretty dumb.
A pretty dumb tactical decision.
Yeah.
And then she kills Captain Carter by cutting her in half with the Captain Carter shield, and she kills Captain Marvel by dropping a statue on her.
Right.
Proving that she is, because that, I feel like at least those two were almost to get out of the way. Like, okay, but who's stronger? Who would win in a fight, Captain Marvel or Scarlet Witch? We're like, okay, well, here's a venue where we can explore that.
Right. Yeah.
And the answer is Scarlet Witch.
Right. I kind of like how they do that, because it, like, I don't know, it, for me, I think of all of the powered beings that are in that room, historically among movies and comics and all of that, the Reed Richards / Anson Mount's character are the historical ones that win
and they're the
fights.
first
And they're the
that
first
get taken out.
That get taken out, and they get taken out in hysterical ways.
Yeah.
Right? I like how Sam Raimi was like, yeah, they don't really matter.
Yeah.
These women are more powerful than they could ever be. Just let's just get them out of the way so we can focus on this fight.
Yeah.
You know, and like that's like the, you know, I almost kind of wish that would be the case with a lot of other, like I know that like those scenes in Infinity War and Endgame where it's like all of the women power.
Oh yeah, the girls get it done thing.
Yeah. I know people bag on those a lot, but like
not without reason, because
Right.
it can be done well. Just look at season 2 of The Boys.
Right, exactly.
Where it's like all of the, like in that particular situation, the only ones capable of fighting that particular enemy are the women, because they're the ones with the superpowers.
Right, exactly.
And so they also each have their own individual reasons to be fighting this person.
Right.
And that, like, on top of earlier in the season making fun of the more corporate, like, girls get it done, all posing together. So yeah, I get why it's in there. I just think that it should be done better.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think it deserves to be done better, and it's high time that it
gets done better and not cynically. That's the thing that I come back to a lot of times with these kind of big budget movies, is that it's not. I don't give that much credit for representation that's done cynically, that's done like specifically to bring, if you're like, we should have this kind of character because it will bring in that market.
Right. Almost
versus we should bring in this character because that's a new perspective, because this group of people legitimately deserves good representation.
Right. And because frankly the story calls for it.
Right.
You know, that's the other big thing for me too, is that like we ought to be having more stories that it's a necessity for these for people that belong to these communities to be front and center in them.
And that's the other aspect, is whether or not they're willing to have people from those communities in the writing room.
Right. That's the, you know, that would be the next hurdle.
Well, and I mean, you know, sometimes we get there, like with, I think that's a lot of the stuff that really worked in Black Panther was because that's who was making the movie.
Right.
Same with Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Right.
So, yeah. So Wanda destroys the Illuminati. Professor X says, Stephen, go find the Book of MacGuffin and save America Chavez. Stephen has a fight with Mordo. Mordo's the only one that lives.
He is the only one that lives.
Yeah.
Because he's trapped under that little thing with the
There's like a little ditch, and his last words in the movie are, "I'm beginning to see why your universe is Mordo doesn't like you very much. It's kind of a fun, weird comedic line in the middle of such a brutal scene.
Yeah, no kidding.
So then while he's escaping and while Christine is getting America out because Scarlet Witch is coming for her, Professor X does his going into her mind thing. It's kind of a cool little scene where he walks through a door. The actual that universe's Wanda is like trapped under rubble with the opening, like the wedding footage opening of the first episode of WandaVision playing on an old TV next to it.
That's a direct reference to the second to last episode of WandaVision too.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so there's that whole episode focuses on Agatha has Wanda trapped, and she's trying to figure out how Wanda gained her powers. And the one of the first memories that gets shown is this memory where they're back in Sokovia, and their house gets bombed.
Oh, okay.
And when she climbs out of the rubble with Pietro, there's a TV right there playing the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Okay.
So that whole sequence is a reference to Wanda being trapped under the weight of her entire being.
Yeah.
And it almost foreshadows her ability to still be a good person. And that's kind of what made me, when I saw that scene, that's what it made me think like, oh, maybe there's a possibility where Wanda could actually use all this for good. Yeah,
well, that to me, back in her first scene with Doctor Strange in the movie where they're talking about the events of WandaVision, she says, I made mistakes and I hurt people, and Strange says, but you put it right in the end, and that was never in doubt. So that was the line that kind of keyed me off that she was gonna... that essentially how it was going to end is exactly how it does end. She eventually does manage to get to her kids, but then they're so horrified by the things she did to get there that she realizes that she was doing wrong and that this is not what they would have wanted. So, I mean, it's really good foreshadowing, and it's a good scene and a pretty effective scare when evil witch Wanda just shows up behind him and snaps his neck, and then goodbye Professor X.
Right, severing his link in the mental area, in the mental, I don't want to say universe because it's not, but in the mental space, kills him in real life, which was always, that was one of the in one of the many X-Men lines. I'm pretty sure that's one of the ways that he dies in different lines as well. Yeah, or at least that's something that they have to they foreshadow a lot in different comics. Is his big weakness is in fact his greatest strength is his telepathy. If he dies or something happens to him in that space, then he'll die. He dies out in the real world.
Okay, if you die in the dream, you die for real.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So then, during the course of the stuff with Professor X, Rachel and America get away. They reunite with Steven, and then they go down through the tunnels because that universe's Steven locked away the Book of MacGuffin, or a waypoint to the Book of MacGuffin, and Christine knows the way. And so they go through this tunnel that leads onto the river. Wanda's following them. They have the stuff with the shutting doors. One of them appears to stop her, and then she just steps out from the side. It's a great jump scare. She looks genuinely kind of scary in this section.
Oh, yeah.
She's got I'm not sure if it's blood or slime, but she's got something smeared on her forehead. She's got the glowing red Scarlet Witch eyes, and just her physicality. The way Elizabeth Olsen carries herself in this scene is very kind of animalistic and intimidating.
Yeah, I can see where the original writing of this almost Lovecraftian horror could have really come into play if that's how they had decided to.
Yeah, well, and I don't know if the original Lovecraftian horror angle even tied into WandaVision at all, because I think it predated WandaVision.
Oh, okay.
And then it was while they were shifting around directors and directions to go because they didn't want a horror story.
That makes sense.
At least that's my theory. I don't know if that's the case. But yeah, so they ultimately blow up the ceiling to flood the tunnel. And she survives because she's the Scarlet Witch. Of course she does.
Right.
They manage to get through. The door to the waypoint is locked, and the only way to unlock it is to put in his broken watch, which we find out that that Christine has been holding on to, but she didn't give it back to him. Because immediately she gave back the amulet and his sling ring and his cloak, but she held on to that.
Yeah, it's an interesting...
And they were talking when he first got captured. He said, "What were we to each other in this universe?" And she says, "We never figured that out." So that's another through line that America points out, is that pretty much in every universe, Stephen is in love with Christine, but essentially blows it, either by being Doctor Strange or by something else. But it seems like in this universe, they didn't have the chance to blow it. He died first. So it seems like maybe she's not quite as over him in that universe. I just thought that was very sweet and touching. And again, like, absolutely no hate to Rachel McAdams. She's a great actress. But again, if it was an actress who had better chemistry with Benedict Cumberbatch, I think a lot of those scenes would have been more impactful than they were.
Oh, yeah.
So he unlocks it with the watch. They go in. Wanda goes in after them and destroys the Book of MacGuffin. Sends Strange and Christine into what we find out is an incursion universe. And then grabs America and goes back to the cave. Well, she opens a portal using America's powers and throws her through the portal to the cave, and then just unpossesses that Wanda. And she, just to show what her thought is at, she goes, "My boys," and then jumps.
My brand.
So then Strange and Christine wander to this weird Silent Hill. It's like Silent Hill meets Inception, where there's like tail lights that are not attached to a car. They're just disembodied tail lights running laps around the block. The ocean is like coming up to the street level. There's cars floating in midair. It's really cool looking.
Oh, yeah. I just hate it when my tail lights go off on their own adventure. You don't know how many times that's happened to me.
Yeah, it's a real problem.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they get to the Citadel, not the Citadel, the Sanctum. Strange goes in alone because he sees the other Strange up in the window. This is, I don't know what his classification is. He's evil Strange.
Yeah.
Because he's the guy in the trailer that goes, "Things just got out of hand." This is a Strange who has the Darkhold. And we essentially learned that he blew it with his Christine, and he's got the Darkhold and started dream walking to find if there was a universe where they were together, and found that there wasn't. And so he just started dream walking and killing other universes' Doctor Stranges until that caused his universe to collapse, or his universe collapsed because of an unrelated reason. And so they start fighting. This Doctor Strange apparently is a musician because he's got pianos and sheet music and everything all over the place. And so they literally start shooting musical notes at each other. Oh. And that fight is so great. They're blocking them with the like string structure of sheet music. It's great. R. Strange knocks Evil Strange out a window. He falls and gets impaled on a fence. Christine gets scared by his third eye opening because apparently using the Darkhold gives you black fingers, And if you're a Doctor Strange, it gives you black fingers and a third eye in the middle of your forehead.
Right.
And the third eye, like, the effects don't look terrible, but they're not great.
The third eye is just a DLC package for Darkhold.
I think a lot of the CG in this movie looks great on its own, but then when it's composited with the other actors, you can kind of tell that they're not making contact.
Yeah.
And so it looked like it was a Snapchat effect where you could almost see where the lines of his forehead would just stop abruptly and the eye would begin. I obviously would have preferred a prosthetic, but it's fine.
I really have no idea what's going on with CGI, but it seems like they have used the same effects that they've been using since the early 2000s, in that they used a bunch of new stuff and then stopped, and we've slowly gotten just used to CGI being in movies, and now can just see when it gets bad or what. But like the last few CGI movies or CGI heavy movies that I've seen, you can just immediately tell it's, even down to the color grading. Like there's a scene in Black Widow with Yelena on the top of whatever floating barge that they have.
Yeah, it's
you can tell
the space station.
Yeah, the space station, or whatever the heck it is.
It's Cloud City.
Yeah, right. And the lighting on her face doesn't match the lighting around her, and I don't know how that's passable now.
I think it might just be a combination of we spent up the budget or we don't have time to finish it so it looks good, because a lot of times when CG looks bad, it's because the artists aren't given time to finish.
Yeah.
Or they don't have the resources to finish and make it look good. So it might be that. It might literally be, it looks good enough. People don't care if the effects are seamless anymore. It's good enough. They came here to see Scarlett Johansson kick people, and they're not going to care. Which, I mean, the average moviegoer probably wouldn't notice. It's something that sticks out to me, but that's kind of a me thing.
Yeah.
And when it really bugs me is like when it's in the same shot, like earlier in the octopus fight, when it like had Wong in its tentacle, and I could like see, okay, that's where Wong ends. That's where the layer of tentacle on top of the Wong layer, like video editing brain kicks in. I'm like, okay, so that's where that layer ends. That's where this layer on top of it begins. I can tell that they're not physically there together.
Right. Yeah. It's almost, to me, it's always color. I can always tell the difference between, as you say, like the physical layer ends and the CG layer begins. Like you can always tell the difference in color.
Yeah.
Which is silly, because like I've been using Adobe since I was 14, and I can tell you where the tool is to match color from something you take a picture on, and how to draw it into a graphic. And
again, it might just be, okay, we need to finish the effect itself, and then we can focus on making sure that the colors match absolutely, and then they run out of time or they run out of resources because it's a product that needs to be getting pumped out on a schedule. And it's not, because you can tell like when it's really well integrated, like more recently Dune, there's a lot of CG in that movie, but it's not obvious, because of the way that it's shot and because of the way that it's integrated. And that's something that I don't think is like a given that's something that they're going to care about as much. I'm not trying to imply that these blockbuster movies are low art or that they're lesser than something like that, but I do think that it's something that kind of falls between the cracks sometimes, especially if it's like we have to make so many a year. It's kind of like if you're building something by hand versus if you're securing parts on a conveyor belt.
Right. Yeah. It's stuff like that kind of gets under my skin because I tend to think that, like, whatever the product is, you should take pride in your work.
Yeah.
And I don't see how somebody could come back and, like, a color grader could come back and look at the finished product and be like,
I'm proud of that.
Yeah, that's the thing that bugs me is, like, the people that are in charge of the budget and the people that are in charge of pumping out these movies.
Which is why I think for some of it, like, the good enough aspect comes through.
Right.
And or, like, just the realization that, okay, this is what we're given to work with.
Right. And that's, you're not doing your color department justice. You're not doing your CG department justice. If you spend 3/4 of the budget on renting the studio and paying the actors and paying the set designers and all that, if you can't spend the same amount of money on the thing that's actually going to be making your movie, then why make it? That's my argument.
Yeah, it doesn't. But again, it doesn't look terrible.
No,
and like when they're fighting with the magic and the musical notes, that stuff looks awesome.
Oh yeah, it was really good.
It's like when it's making contact with the physical stuff, and so he dies. Doctor Strange decides to take the Darkhold and dreamwalk into the corpse of Guardian Strange with the ponytail to go to the mountain and rescue America Chavez. And he says, okay, Christine, you need to fight off the ghosts because they're going to be mad that I'm dreamwalking into a corpse.
Right. It's a zombie ponytail. Strange.
And so there's even lightning and everything. It's a full-on Frankenstein homage. I love it. I love the look of Zombie Strange here. And he makes it to the mount. He kind of makes it to the mountain before the demons show up and grab him, and they, like, drag him down into his own mind. It's one of those, like, just endless black water, and he gets dragged down. It looks like the movie Under Her Skin with Scarlett Johansson. And then Christine is able to talk him back. She's like, they're just ghosts. You're a sorcerer. Use them. And then he is able to, like, ghost bend the demons into a cape for himself. And it looks so cool.
I think all of the Ghostbusters are rolling around in their graves.
So he does that. The demons start attacking Christine, and she just, like, she finds a brazier of something, grabs a candle, and shoots little ghost fireballs at him.
Yeah.
And then he shows up. Wong has been knocked off the cliff and then is climbing down, and then they're like stone golems.
Yeah.
They look like a monster from Witcher 3. Mm-hmm. They're kind of guarding the tomb. And so he and Wong fight those off. He, like, blocks Wanda's magic by closing the ghosts in and a shield around himself. Which, again, it just looks super cool.
Oh, yeah.
And then he, like, creates a cage of ghosts around Wanda to keep her at bay while they try to rescue America. Earlier on, America is talking to Wanda because she's, like, holding her down on the table, and she says, this is not what your kids would want. And she says, they'll never know. America says, but you will. Tying back to when she says the lying was the hard part.
Right.
So I don't think that she would have been able to maintain that lie, regardless.
Think so either, especially with her kids.
Right. So that the whole fight happens. Essentially, it comes down to Strange needs to take her powers, and she looks at him and she says, I understand. It's okay. She's not afraid. She's not fighting it. And he is the one who says, no, this is your call. I believe that you can control it. You just have to find it within yourself. Which, again, that's what sets him apart from all the other Stranges, and that's a big completion of his arc.
Oh, right.
Is learning to let other people take the wheel. He doesn't always have to be the one holding the knife.
Right.
And so she realizes that she can, in fact control it. She lands some nice punches on Wanda. Those hits land.
Yeah.
But then she realizes, I can't fight you, so I'm going to give you what you want. Opens up the portal to the Illuminati dimensions, Wanda and the kids. She goes in. The kids are horrified.
Oh, yeah.
And they're, like, throwing stuff at her. They're calling her a witch, saying, get away from my mom. She, like, throws their mom into a window. She keeps repeating, like, I'm not a monster. And then they're horrified. She's looking around at all this monstrous stuff, and she kind of comes to the realization that, like, she's becoming a monster to get this, and that this is, again, not what their children would want.
Right.
And I really like how empathetic that other Wanda is.
Oh, totally.
I mean, it makes sense because that's literally herself, but she goes up and she says, know that they will be loved. Mm. That even though you can't be with them, they have a good life here, and that's really touching. I like the way that played out.
It makes her more human. It humanizes everything.
Yeah, I also don't understand the people that were hating on Scarlet Witch in this movie, saying, "Oh, she's just crazy and unhinged," and blah blah blah. No, she's a very sympathetic antagonist. She's an antagonist for sure in this movie. Oh yeah, 100%. But she is very sympathetic. Her goals are very human.
I just chalk it up to people not being emotionally mature or
people being misogynists.
Yeah, that too.
And so that's what happens. She leaves their universe alone, and she says, okay, the Darkhold has done too much damage. I need to close it.
Right. And
she has America and Wong. There's the great line from Wong when Zombie Strange shows up and he sees her, like, I don't even want to know. So they get away, or they portal away. Scarlet Witch brings the temple down on herself. She may be dead, she may not.
There's honestly, she's as the temple comes down.
She's Scarlet Witch. She's capable of pretty much anything. So I think it pretty much comes down to whether or not Elizabeth Olsen wants to come back.
Right.
It's pretty open-ended. If she doesn't want to come back, then they can just say her storyline ended there. I hope we see her again.
Yeah, I think she's great.
I like that character here.
Yeah. No, I feel like she's, kind of getting out of the shadow of her older sisters of Mary Kate and Ashley. So.
I'm really happy for Elizabeth Olsen that she's coming into her own. I also like the level of agency that the character of Wanda has now, that she's not just kind of a tool for the Avengers.
Yeah.
So she collapses that. Strange has the touching moment with Christine where he says, I love you in every universe. He confesses that he's afraid of losing people, and that's why he doesn't let people in, and kind of has that catharsis with her before she goes back to her universe. Again, if they had Tom Holland Zendaya level chemistry, that scene would have been heartbreaking.
Oh yeah.
It's still really well done as it is, but it would have been next level. So then they portal home. We see that America is now taking sorcerer lessons. I love that Stephen and Wong basically just adopted her.
Oh yeah.
He's going to leave. He finally bows to Wong as Sorcerer Supreme. That's kind of another ongoing joke, is that Wong is saying, you should bow before the Sorcerer Supreme. He's like, yeah, I know that there's the customs. I'm not going to do it. And then he does it at the end. America, before he leaves, says, I'm really glad that I met you. And then he walks away. We see him fixing the watch, symbolically moving on with his life and getting over his attachment to Christine. He seems genuinely happier. He puts the watch away, leaves the sanctum, crosses the street, and then gets a third eye.
Yep.
And then cut to credits. And then there's the mid-credit scene, which is he is once again just walking down the street. Charlize Theron just shows up in some kind of outfit. She says, "You caused an incursion and you need to fix it." She cuts open reality with a sword. And he just says, "Okay."
Great.
And goes with her.
Which, I don't remember her name, but she's his next love interest.
Yeah, I know that she is his wife in the comics, at least in some comics. Clea, it looks like her name is. And then the second actual post-credit scene.
The actual important thing in the...
Yeah, the best thing in the movie.
What completes really a Sam Raimi movie, I would say.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not a Sam Raimi movie without Bruce Campbell.
Right.
I can think of I actually don't know if I can think of any... Well, maybe Darkman. I don't know if he's in Darkman, but he's in most of that man's movies. He was in all three of the Spider-Mans. He shows up here as anyone who doesn't know, Bruce Campbell is Ash from Evil Dead, which is where Sam Raimi got his start. And so he plays a character called Pizza Papa. When they first get to the Illuminati universe, America says, "Oh, we need to find food. Food's free in most universes." And then she just grabs a thing of pizza balls, and he's like, "Hey, you need to pay for that." And then Doctor Strange puts a spell on him where he just starts doing slapstick comedy on himself. And then so the final post-credit scene, he's all beat up from doing that to himself, and it stops, and he looks right at the camera and says, "It's finally over." And that might be my favorite post-credit scene in any MCU movie.
I think every MCU anything from now until the end of time should have that as a final end credit scene.
It's just Bruce Campbell in one universe.
And then bring the circle in around his face, the Looney Tunes style, and play it out. He's the Looney Tunes at the end.
I think Bruce Campbell should be the new Thanos.
I think Bruce Campbell is the new Thanos. I don't think we've realized that quite yet. Move over, Kane the Conqueror.
He's too powerful.
I mean, somebody actually made those pizza balls in real life, and they look delicious.
That feels like something they would have in the Avengers campus at Disneyland.
They better. If they don't have it next time I'm there, add it to the things that Scarlett Johansson will sue Disney about.
Not having more Pizza Papa.
Right.
Yeah. So Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's not perfect.
No.
I really liked it.
Yeah.
A lot though.
It's fun.
I think on the Phase 4 MCU scale, I didn't like it as much as No Way Home. For me, as far as just subjective enjoyment, it's kind of on par with Shang-Chi. I liked it better than Eternals, and I liked it better than Black Widow, but that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I thought it was good too. I thought it was fun. I thought it, kind of feels a need for some of those characters, and I think it has the winks and the nods to the lifelong Marvel fans that they've been wanting for new content coming down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's neither the magnum opus of the series nor the worst thing that they've ever done. Like so many things, the truth is somewhere in the middle, but I would highly recommend it.
Yeah. It's not Thor the Dark World, thank God.
It's not Thor the Dark World, it's not Age of Ultron. I think I would take Thor the Dark World over Age of Ultron, personally.
Oh, see, I would take Age of Ultron over Thor the Dark World.
Dark World has some
Only
of the
for
good
James
Loki
Spader
stuff.
Yeah, but it doesn't have James Spader in it.
it doesn't have James Spader in it, but that's both a blessing and a curse.
That's true.
So that's, yeah.
That was that?
That was that.